you're watching Night TV International live from Cairo. It's 3 p.m. Cairo local time for Panorama News. I'm Nasreen Behar, and we start with the headlines. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi witnesses Martyr Day celebrations. Russia's Sputnik 5 could be made in Europe for the first time after Italy deal signed. And the EU Parliament strips Bridgement two other Catalans of immunity. Welcome back. Time for the news in full. The 33rd Armed Forces Culture Symposium was held on Tuesday, dedicated to mark Martyr Day. President al-Sisi honored the families of martyrs and the wounded in military operations during the event. Prime Minister Madbouli, Defense Minister General Mohammed Zaki, and a number of ministers and senior officials attended the event. The symposium was held under the title, "If not for them, we wouldn't be here." Addressing the symposium, President al-Sisi said Egypt does not forget its martyrs. He said the legends of the martyrs who sacrificed their lives for the nation urge Egyptians to preserve their country. Al-Sisi said all respect and appreciation go for Egypt's martyrs, adding that protecting nations is not an easy task, but a task that requires sacrifices. Al-Sisi added that if not for the sacrifices of the martyrs, security and stability would not be attained. He said Egypt will witness the birth of a new state and a new republic with the inauguration of the new administrative capital. Al-Sisi said the region has witnessed developments that destroy the concept of the national state. He said that he hails the role of the armed forces, police forces, in countering the forces of destruction. As for the coronavirus pandemic, Al-Sisi said the medical team's task during the crisis is also highly appreciated. He said the state seeks to make citizens' lives better through the Decent Life Initiative. President al-Sisi said encroachment on agricultural lands must be stopped, as well as the acceleration of illegal constructions. Prime Minister Madbouli held talks on Tuesday with the Minister of Environment, Dr. Yasmin Fouad. He was briefed on developments and revenues from natural reserves and investment projects planned for them. The reserves discussed included those of the Central Zone, Southern Sinai, the Red Sea and Aswan. For her part, Dr. Fouad said the ministry is now laying down a plan for the disposal of construction waste over short and long-term schemes. She said a cooperation protocol is to be signed with a German company for the establishment of an industrial production unit for compressed wood from palm leaves. The scheme aims to decrease the amount of imported compressed wood in Egypt. The Health Ministry reported new 591 coronavirus cases and 43 deaths. In its daily report, the ministry said recoveries have reached 144,000 cases from a total of 187,000. The ministry said it is still on high alert and follows up on coronavirus developments around the clock. The statement said precautionary measures are taken to fend against any viruses or contagious diseases. Russia's Sputnik 5 vaccine against COVID-19 could be produced in Europe for the first time after a commercial deal was signed to produce it in Italy. The deal was signed by the Moscow-based RDIF Sovereign Wealth Fund and Swiss-based pharmaceutical company Adian. More details with the following story.
Russia's Sputnik 5 vaccine against COVID-19 could be produced in Europe for the first time after a commercial deal to produce it in Italy was signed by the Moscow-based RDIF Sovereign Wealth Fund and Swiss-based pharmaceutical company Adian. The agreement, which will need approval from Italian regulators before production can be launched, has been confirmed by both RDIF and the Italian-Russian Chamber of Commerce. It is the latest evidence that some EU companies are not willing to wait for the EU's own regulator, the European Medicines Agency (EMA), to grant its approval to Sputnik 5 before pushing ahead with their own plans. Scientists said the Russian vaccine was almost 92% effective based on peer-reviewed late-stage trial results published in the Lancet Medical Journal last month. Sputnik 5 has already been approved or is being assessed for approval in 3 EU member states: Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic. EU officials have said Brussels could start negotiations with the vaccine maker if at least 4 member countries requested. The Italian-Russian Chamber of Commerce said in a statement issued on Monday that the move paved the way for the creation of the first Sputnik 5 production facility in Europe. It said there were plans for Italian production to begin in June and that it hoped that 10 million doses of Sputnik 5 could be produced there by the end of the year.
Mass inoculation in the North African nation using Russia's Sputnik 5 jabs. The presidency statement said an initial 30,000 doses are due to arrive on Tuesday from Russia, followed by 500,000 doses in the coming weeks. The statement cited constant diplomatic efforts to procure them. Tunisia, which has about 11.7 million inhabitants, has recorded 237,704 COVID-19 cases, including 8,201 deaths since the pandemic began. It will be one of the last North African nations to start vaccinations. A vaccination campaign is expected to begin in the coming days, while the lockdown measures remain in place, although rules have been eased slightly with an overnight curfew starting at 10 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. for travelers. Mandatory quarantine at a hotel has been replaced by self-isolation at home for 48 hours. Moving to Libya, Libya's Prime Minister-designate urged lawmakers to vote for his new government in the first reunited session of parliament in years that the United Nations hailed as historic. A total of 132 members of the 188-strong House of Representatives gathered to vote on interim Premier Abdul Hamid Dibeiba cabinet lineup, a crucial step toward December elections and stability after a decade of violence. A United Nations supervised process aims to unite the country after an October ceasefire between forces loyal to 2 rival administrations in the east and the west of the country. UN mission in Libya called Monday's meeting historic and praised the convening a reunified session after many years of divisions and paralysis in Libya. U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price said on Monday that the Houthis must demonstrate willingness to engage in a political process to achieve peace in Yemen after the group claimed responsibility for drone and missile attacks on Saudi Arabia. Arab-led coalition authorities said most of Sunday's drones and missiles were intercepted en route to their targets and there were no casualties or property losses from the attacks. Price said the attacks were unacceptable and put civilians at risk, including Americans. Russia called on Washington and Tehran on Tuesday to take mutual steps and coordinate the return to the Iran nuclear deal as signatories to the historic accord work to salvage it. More details with the following report.
Russia on Tuesday said the U.S. and Iran should make mutual steps to coordinate to return to the nuclear deal. The Russian foreign minister was speaking in the UAE as signatories to the historic accord work to salvage it. Formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, the 2015 deal offered sanctions relief in exchange for curbs on Tehran's nuclear ambitions and guarantees it would not seek an atomic bomb. But the accord has been hanging by its threads since former U.S. President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew it from 2018 and reimposed punishing sanctions on Tehran. Russia's Sergei Lavrov said that to resolve this urgent task, I believe it is perfectly possible to work out synchronous steps, simultaneous steps to be taken in stages by both the Iranians and the United States. Speaking to reporters in Abu Dhabi, he said if deliberations persist on which side should be first to return to compliance, then this bargaining could go on forever. Following Joe Biden's U.S. presidential election victory in November, Washington, Tehran, and the European parties to the deal, France, Germany, and Britain, have been trying to salvage it. Biden has signaled his readiness to revive the accord, but insists that Iran first return to all its nuclear commitments, most of which it suspended in response to the U.S. sanctions. Tehran, meanwhile, demands Washington take the first step by scrapping the sanctions.
Biden has suspended drone strikes outside of war zones where U.S. forces are operating. The step reverses the policy of his predecessor Donald Trump, who had given the military free rein in countries such as Somalia. And then Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said on Monday any drone strikes planned in Afghanistan, Syria or Iraq will have to be approved by the White House. He described the measure as interim guidance that was issued to ensure that the president has full visibility on proposed significant actions. He told the news conference that it's not meant to be permanent and it doesn't mean a cessation of strikes. The European Parliament has voted to waive the immunity of Catalonia's former regional head of government and two other separatist lawmakers, taking them a step closer to extradition to Spain, where they are charged with sedition. More details in this report.
The European Parliament has voted to waive the immunity of Catalonia's former regional head of government and two other separatist lawmakers, taking them a step closer to extradition to Spain, where they are charged with sedition. The Chamber announced on Tuesday that EU lawmakers had voted clearly in favor of stripping the immunity from prosecution of Carles Puigdemont and two former cabinet members, Toni Comín and Clara Ponsati. Puigdemont and Comín, who are in self-imposed exile in Belgium, formally became members of the European Parliament in June 2019, while Ponsati, who is in Scotland, was officially a member from January 2020. All are subject to European arrest warrants issued by Spain, which is seeking their extradition related to their role in organizing a 2017 independence referendum deemed illegal by Spanish court. Spain's Foreign Minister Arantxa González Laya said the decision was a sign of respect for the work of the Spanish justice system, and the European lawmaker cannot use his condition to protect himself from appearing in the national court. The European Parliament said it was for national judicial systems of EU countries to determine criminal proceedings. Belgium has so far denied Spain's requests. A court in January refused to extradite Lluís Puig, another separatist former member of the Catalan government living in Belgium, over charges of misuse of public funds. Puigdemont has also been charged with misuse of public funds. Various independence leaders were convicted in Spain of the same charge of sedition in 2019 and sentenced up to 13 years in prison.
Heavy rains breached the dam on the Hawaiian island of Maui, prompting authorities to open evacuation shelters after ordering everyone in its vicinity and along the nearby coast to leave. More details with the following report.
Heavy rains breached a dam on the Hawaiian island of Maui, prompting authorities to open evacuation shelters after ordering everyone in its vicinity and along the nearby coast to leave. The rains led to the cresting of the Kaupakolua Dam in the island's northern region of Haiku. Evacuation shelters were being opened at the Paia Community Center and Hana High School. Maui Mayor Michael Victorino said that 6 homes were heavily damaged or destroyed after the dam near Haiku flooded the area. The earthen dam, which was built in 1885, is 57 feet in height and 400 feet in length. It belongs to the East Maui Irrigation Company. Parks in Maui County will stay closed because of the rain and flooding. The State Department of Land and Natural Resources is responsible for inspecting some 135 registered dams statewide. Last year, the state issued a notice of deficiency to the owners of the Kaupakolua Dam. It was one of 9 dams cited as being in poor or unsatisfactory physical condition.
Our political segment is over and I leave you now with my colleague Inje with more news, economic and sports news.
Thank you very much, Nisreen. A very good afternoon to everyone, and I'll be right back with a look at the business headlines.